become a young Israel. Okay.
Okay, we're on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. The Sakninis Adrachim, they on the 15th of Adar, we said, they would fix the roads. Vesar Chovos. These are like the plazas, Vesam Mikvos Hamayim, like the water pools, the Oisin called Tzorcha Rabim. They did things for sort of what the public needed. This was all done right before Nisan to complete, any jobs that are difficult to, that have to be done before the end of the year ends.
Public works.
Eluhain Tzorchei Rabim. These are the public works. Danin Dinei Mamanas. If the Beis Dinim had not finished, the cases that dealt with financial crimes between people, they would judge those, the Dinei Nefashos, any capital crimes, Dinei Makos, judgments that would lead to Malchus, Poidin Erchin. If somebody made an Erech vow, they would say Erech Alai, his person's value, I have to give to the Beis HaMikdash, they'd collect it. The Charamim, if person said, my estate should be Cherem to the Beis HaMikdash, which means you donated it to the Beis HaMikdash, or any Hegdish, right? If you had promised to bring a korban and you hadn't brought it, so they would collect it. Umashkinas Asota, if a husband brought his wife suspecting her of infidelity, they would, give her to drink the sota waters. Sorfnas Apora, they would burn the Pora Aduma at the end of the year. Orphan Egla Rufa, if there had to be a case of Egla Rufa that hadn't been done, they would do it by the 15th of Adar. Veroitzin Eved Ivri. If an Eved Ivri who normally stays to work for his master for 6 years wants to stay forever, he would have to have his ear, have a hole put in his ear. Umetarnas HaMitzorah, they would do the Tahara process for the Mitzorah. Umefrakanas HaMinol Mal Gabi HaMayim. From the winter time on, they would seal up the water sources. But then when spring came and people needed water, then they would uncover them. They wouldn't replace it until the next winter. Tamon Tanin, and so we learned in the Mishnah, Mashkin Beis HaShalchin. Other things we did was we irrigated, and you could also do this in Chol Moed, that you could irrigate a field that needs irrigation. Umitzayanin ala kvaros. Even in Chol Moed, you could put a mark over a grave site so people, the Kohanim, would know to stay away from it. So the Gemara asked, look, why are we doing it in Chol Moed? I thought those were one of the things that we did from Adar. The Tipotter, you answer the question. We're talking about a case where the rains came and washed away the lime, so you have to do it again. Then the Yotzin Afal HaKloim, we said on the 15th day of Adar, Bezdin would send people out into fields where there were hybrid crops to pull them out. And you could do that. So why the 15th of Adar? Lo Kvar Yotzim, but didn't they start doing that from Adar Aleph? So Tipotter, you answer the question. You're talking about a year where the crops are not ripening quickly, and you can't recognize the crops until the 15th of Adar. Now, the Gemara mentioned that we mark graves. So we want to know, where is the source that there's an obligation to mark graves? It's actually halacha that the Rambam brings, that you have to mark a grave if you find a corpse somewhere so that people will be aware of it. You do it, and right, not over it, but sort of a distance to it. But they shouldn't do it too far because that increases the tumah of Eretz Yisrael. So, Minayin, let's see, and Rabbi Rachi and Rabbi Yaakov Bar Bas Yaakov b'shem Rav Chunya de Bas Chavrin. He was from Bas Chavrin. Some people say Rav Yosi Amila Rav Yaakov Baracha b'shem Rav Chunya de Bas Chavrin, that it was this Mandomar. And Rav Chizki Rav Uziel bred Rav Chunya de Bas Chavrin b'shem Rav Chunya Bas Chavrin says we learn it from the pasuk by the Mitzorah where it says V'tomei tomei yikra. The Mitzorah announces to everyone that he's Tomei, so people will stay away from him. In order for you to identify where the tomb is, so you stay away from it. And therefore, just like the Mitzorah tells you, so therefore the Bezdin has to mark the sites of Tumah so people would stay away from it. Rabbi Avila b'shem Rav Shmuel bar Nachman has a different pasuk. It says b'Yechezkel, the Avra Oivrim ba'aretz, people who would pass through Eretz Yisrael, the Ra'a etzem Adam, if they would find a bone, then Ubana etzlo tzion, so they would mark it, so that they know people would come by to bury it properly. So we see clearly a pasuk that says that there's a chiyuv to mark places of tumah. Etzem mikanshim mitzayim alad somos. You do it on a collection of bones, and Adam mikanshim mitzayim alad shidr v'agulgolos. That even a spinal column or a skull has the din of like a whole body. You have to mark that as well. And it said uvana, you build at Sion. Uvana mikanshim mitzayim al gabi even kvua. You have to have a stone like a headstone that doesn't move, that's connected to the ground. It can't be a movable stone. Otherwise, it'll wherever it goes, that area will be impure. You'll increase areas that are of impurity that are not really impure. Because if you use a stone that is a metaltal stone, it's going to roll somewhere else and be matami somewhere else. When it said in the Yechezkel, Uvano etzlo tzion, etzlo means lamakom tahara. You don't place it right on top of the impurity, you place it near it. Right? Tzion, mikan tzion, the word tzion is that's a marker. Let's say you find one stone that was marked. So people didn't mark a place with one stone usually. Because you normally wouldn't keep it there. If you lean your body over it, you'll become tummy. Because you can assume that there was a dead body there. Now, but let's say there were two marked stones. So and tor, if you lean over the stones themselves, you're not going to be impure, because these two stones mark the area where the body is between the stones. So therefore, if you lean your body over the area between the stones, then you become tummy. However, let's say it looked like people were plowing in between those stones. So then they're considered like separate stones. And therefore, if he leans over the area between the stones, he would remain tohor, beinei and tor. So we were saying tummy, but near the stones themselves, like we said before, you have to put the stone near a dead body, so then you become tummy. However, Tani, we learned in the other brisa, ein mitzayin ala basar, on if you just have no bones, but you just have like muscle. So we don't put a tziyun over that. Shema nisak ala basar. Perhaps the muscle has gone away over time, and then you have less of an amount that you need shear, kazayas. Now, if you leave it tziyun there, then forever it's going to be it's going to be considered impure, and that's not the case. So we don't put a marker over just flesh itself. Rav Yusta Bar Shunim boy kome Rav Mana. Rav used to ask the following question in front of Rav Mana. Now, if you don't mark this area where there was muscle, so until it decomposes, it has a kazayas. So things that have passed over to become tamei, no one's going to know about it, right? So you're being metame taharos lamafreya. So, and for the Gemara, Amarle mutav sheyiskatlu bolashah, we'd rather have a temporary problem where people's things are going to become tamei temporarily, but to mark it, where forever this area is going to be considered tamei, you can't use it for eternity, we'd rather suffer in a short term. Halacha based Mishnah, Rav Yehuda. Now, in this din that Bezdin had to go out and remove kloim, so the messengers of the Bezdin would uproot all of these hybrid prohibited growths, and they would throw it in front of the Bailim. Now, Misharabu, that didn't seem to do the trick, as we'll see why. More people continued to sin. They would throw it in the roads, so people would trample on it. That still wasn't a disincentive enough. So they made a third takana. They took the field away from the guy. Because Bezdin has the power of Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker, to declare the field ownerless. So that was a disincentive to grow kloim. Says the Gemara, I'm review to me.
But Ernie, if the field is ownerless, anybody can go in and claim for it. And claim it.
That's correct. So that's, if you're an owner of a field and you plant kloim, so the punishment was, Bezdin was going to, if you hadn't gotten rid of the kloim, by the 15th of Adar, they would come in and declare your field not your field.
Can he, the same guy, go back and claim it?
If he's the first one.
Oh, okay. All right.
On Rav Yehuda, initially, they would just dig up the growth and throw it in front of them. However, the owners got smart. The Shluchei Bezdin were weeding their field. Then they would give the kloim to the animals to eat. So therefore, when people didn't stop planting the kloim, the Bezdin thought, okay, we won't throw these hybrid plants in front of the owners, we'll throw it on the road where people travel, and they'll get trampled on. So fine. They couldn't throw the plants to their animals, but somebody was still weeding out their field. So Bezdin made a takana that they would declare the whole field ownerless. Now, from where do we get that Bezdin has the power to declare something ownerless? Minayin shefker Bezdin efker. So this is in Ezra Nehemiah. So Ezra is going to instruct the people who had come back from Bavel, who had married non-Jewish women, to divorce them. And he said, whoever doesn't come within 3 days, Yecharam kol rechusho, he will lose ownership of all of his assets. And he will not be considered Jewish. So we see from here that the Bezdin has the power to declare something ownerless. Now, a field, you're chayav to give trumas and maestras. Now, can the Rabbanon, Minat Torah, the field is still owned by the person. Can they uproot the requirement of the owners to give meiser? So Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Barach Hashem min Hada, he learned it from the following, that in Chanami, you can make it ownerless so that the guy doesn't have to pay Maasros either. Because it says, Ein ma'abris hashana, when Bezdin saw need to add an extra month, to add an extra Adar, otherwise Pesach would not be in the spring, you could use any year except Lo B'Shvis. They couldn't add another month in Shemitah. Well, that's obvious. It's already hard enough to live during Shemitah year, so they're not going to add another month to that. However, also Lo B'Motzei Shvis. The year after Shemitah, also they couldn't add another month. Normally, they would add an extra month in the 6th year, if they had a choice. However, if they did it anyways, it would be mu'uberes. Now, now, when he adds, if we say that if they add a month to the Shemitah year, now normally everything that grows during Shemitah is potter from Trumas and Maasros. So if the Chachamim can add a month, and during that month it's also potter from Trumas and Maasros, you see, Chazal can make a takana to potter something from Trumas and Maasros. Fine. Ad Kedoin Shvius. That explains the Shemitah year. Motzei Shvius Mai. Then, however, why didn't they add another month to the 8th year, right, to the year after Shemitah? So remember, you have to wait to offering the Minchas HaOmer of the second day of Pesach to be able to eat of the new grain that's growing in the 8th year. Well, you're going to add another month to it. It's going to make it more difficult to eat the Chodosh. So they didn't do it either in the 8th year. Rab Zir b'Shem Rabbi Elazar Hada Da'at Omar, this din that they could add, that there was a problem with adding it during Shemitah, was actually hit to Rabbi Lavi Yerk Mechutz La'aretz La'aretz. Rabbi at one point in history is going to permit that you can bring vegetables from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael. Prior to that, there was sakana that maybe they would have enough food. So they have the sakana not to add a month to the Shemitah. But when they allowed to bring vegetables from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, so then they could add the extra month. Adding an extra month to the Shemitah makes no difference. Tana, ein ma'adrin. So the Brisa says you're not allowed to do it during Shemitah. Amrav Mana, Hadadat Amar, that which you said, Rishon Shayu Hashanim Kitikuna. In regular years, the new wheat ripens at a good time. You could eat it immediately after, the 16th of Nisan. But now the produce doesn't ripen quickly. So it makes no difference. The Shemitah year is not like, normally the Shemitah year would be different than the other years. But now there's no difference between years. So therefore you can add the extra month no matter which year it is, even the Shemitah year. 1 year, the best of Rabbi Gamliel added an extra month right away in the year after Shvius. Amar Vuan, in Minada, Lesat Shma Mina Klum. You can't learn from there. Why not? Because it says Shamor Chodesh Aviv. You must keep the holiday of Pesach during the spring. Shemreyu, watch over it. She'aviv b'chidusho, that Chag Pesach has to be in the spring. And if because of the 11 days difference between the lunar and the solar calendar, after 3 years, Pesach's going to be 3 months earlier, in the middle of January. So you have to add an extra month every 3 years, essentially. Now, v'haida amrada, gadish shelo lukat. Let's say, when you harvest a field, anything you drop is called leket. It goes to the aniyim. So, but if you have a standing grain, which leket hasn't, and they're covering leket. So, kol hanoiges ba'aretz. So anything that's touching the ground, harein shel aniyim, belong to the poor. Rav Ami, b'shem Rav Shimon ben Lakish, the Beis Shammai. That's the opinion of Beis Shammai. The Beis Hillel, aniyim oichlim u'masrin. Beis Hillel says that Beis does not have the power to declare something hefker only for poor people. In that case, the aniyim would be allowed to eat things even touching the ground. But Rabbi Yossi says both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree that the Chachamim allow you to be potter from Meiser. Why? Mishum Knosa. Because in the case where he's careless, where he allows the tvua, the wheat, to sit on top of the leket, he relinquishes his right to anything else touching the ground, and that serves proof that the Chazal can make something hefker. Period. Halacha Gimel, Mishnah. The Chamish Asher Bo, on the 15th day of Adar, Shulchanos Hayu Yoshvim b'Medina. There were people whose job was to change money. You needed a machzis shekel, so you brought a dollar bill, and they gave you a machzis shekel, and they would be outside the Beis Hamikdash. Be'esrim v'chamisha yashvu b'mikdash. On the 25th of Adar, they went to the Mikdash. Yashvu b'mikdash is chilul l'mishkan. Now, once they moved to the Beis Hamikdash, people who had not donated the machzis shekel, Bezdin was allowed to go and send the marshal and collect collateral from people if they hadn't given the machzis shekel. Now, who were they allowed to take collateral from? Esmi memashkenim, Leviim v'Yisraelim, v'Geirim v'Avodim v'Shuchrorim. Right? Convert, freed avodim, avalonoshim v'avodim uktonim, not women, not minors, not an Eved Knani. If a minor, if the father began to donate machzis shekel, not because he was a chayiv to it, maybe for chinuch, shuvein posik, you would allow he would continue to do it, but but they wouldn't take collateral from regular minors. However, and they would not take collateral from kohanim, mibnei darkei shalom, for the purposes of peace. What's the peace? We'll see soon. Rav Yehuda ben Bukhri b'Yavne, kol kohen sheshoikel ein a chote. A kohen who gives a machzis shekel is not a sinner. Rav Yechon ben Zakkai lo ki ela kol kohen she'ein a shokel chote. Just the opposite. A kohen who doesn't give the machzis shekel is a sinner. What's going on here? Ela shekwanim doishi mikros elatzman. It says in the pasuk v'chol minchas kohen kalil tia lo yisayachel. When we regular Jews, Pasha to Yisraelim, when we bring a mincha, so the kohen would do kmitza, throw the kmitza on the fire, and we would eat the remaining flour. But when a kohen brought his own personal mincha, he couldn't eat it. It had to be completely burnt. So they made the following concept. So the minchas ha'omer and the shtei lechem on Shavuos and the lechem ha'ponim that they ate every Shabbos, they're menachos. And the Kohanim said like this: they are brought by the tzibur. These are korbanei tzibur. And the machzis shekel went to purchase the material to bring the korbanei tzibur. So the Kohanim said, well, if we donate our own personal machzis shekel, in a sense, we're going to be part owners of these menachos. Now, the minchas ha'omer and the shtei lechem ha'ponim were eaten by the Kohanim. But if a mincha, since we learned that a mincha brought by a Kohen cannot be eaten, how did they eat it? So they darshan we should not give the machzis shekel.
I think we should cut off now.
Okay, we'll cut off. Let me see.
We have,
Okay,
all right?
we'll cut off here. No problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Tomorrow. What time tomorrow? 7:30?
Tomorrow
Yes.
also tomorrow also at 7:30.
Okay, very good.
We're learning Surba at 8 o'clock.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.